For the technical portion, we are going to start with an overview of the Iris ID Iris Access System. Then we will integrate the Iris Access System with the Secure 9000 system, and then finish with a brief demonstration on how to add and delete users. The EAC software package consists of four primary applications. Iris Server, which controls the system communication between the EAC applications, the EAC database, and the iCams. Iris Manager is the interface for system and user management. Iris Monitor is the real-time monitor of system status and transactions. And Iris Enroll is the application used for enrollment of the user's irises into the system. The basic Iris Access System consists of a computer running the Iris Server and other EAC software applications, an enrollment iCam, Iris Access iCams at the entry or field locations, and all these components of the Iris Access System communicate to each other over a standard TCP/IP Ethernet network. For enrollment, the user presents their eyes to the enrollment camera. The enrollment camera then takes the iris images and converts them to a 512-byte iris code. This iris code is then sent to the Iris Server and then stored in the Iris Access EAC database. When permissions are granted to the user, a copy of the iris code is created and sent back through the Iris Server over the network and into the appropriate camera where the user has permission. Once at the iCam, it's stored in the internal iCam database. For identification, the user presents their eyes to the remote iCam, where the image is then converted to a new 512-byte iris code, then compared to the iris code that's stored in the database. If there's a match, the card ID of the user is output via Wiegand output to the access control panel, where the access control panel will match against its database and perform the appropriate action depending on the user permission. In this next section, we'll cover the integration of the Iris Access EAC system and the Secure 9000 system. Here's the overall diagram of Iris Access and Secure system integration. The system consists of a combined Secure and Iris Access server with SQL database, an enrollment and EAC application computer, an enrollment iCam, field remote iCams, and secure access control panels. We will start with a typical secure access control system setup with card readers. We then install the Iris Access EAC Iris Server and create an EAC database on the SQL Server. Then we add a client computer with EAC software applications including Iris Enroll, add an Iris Enroll camera, which will be controlled by the Iris Enroll application. Then we will replace the card readers with Iris cameras and connect the Wiegand output from the iCams to the secure access panels. Then we will complete the integration by installing the Iris Access import services to connect the secure software and the EAC software. It is at this point that we will show the actual integration process. And here we have our combined server. It contains Secure and EAC Iris Access software. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a connection between the two software systems so that we can enroll users on the Secure system and then enroll the iris in the iris access system. So just to demonstrate, we'll show that currently the iris access database is blank. So we're going to Iris Manager. And if you notice, there's no users. Okay, what we want to do is we want to take our users, which are already in the Secure database, which we'll show you. Right now we currently have 12 users. Now some of these users have valid credentials, others do not. But rather than typing in their information and having them in the Iris Manager, we're going to create a connection between the systems to do this automatically. So for now, what we'll do is we'll just close these, and we need to install a program called Iris IA Import for Secure, and that's located in the software installation package in the EAC software. And we want to select the IA import, and we just click the executable and click install. Yes. And click next. Accept the terms. Click next. And this is the path on where it's going to be installed. So we're going to actually use this computer as the program for running IA import. So we'll go in here and we'll put in the security IDs of all ones, and I'll show you in a minute where that will match. The user ID is the login for the EAC software, which by default is administrator, and Iris 3000 is the password. Click next. Now we need to point to the folder directory where the Crossfire software is located, and that's in the Tyco folder under Crossfire. Click OK. Click next and install. And then we'll click finish. So now what we'll do is we'll now that the installation is complete, we'll go into our restart our services. So we'll go into the server configuration for Secure, and we'll stop the service. Now that both are stopped, we'll click start to restart the processes. Okay, now that they're both running, we'll check the server components, and we want to make sure that this Iris ID NextGen connected program is now started. Okay, so it just switched to running. So now that is set, and we had our Iris server running, and we're going to just restart that as well. And we just simply go click exit, and then we restart that. Okay, and it's showing at the bottom here is the Iris server is now running. Okay, so now we need to go in and finish setting up our IA import utility. So we need to go into the actual installed directory, and that's under C program files x86 Iris ID, and then IA import services. And we want to go into the IA import configuration manager, and that's this top icon here is the executable. Click yes. And here it shows shows the IA import server log and the Secure listener log. So there is some activity right now, but we still need to finish setting up some things. So we want to click on the Secure listener settings. Now this selection says that we're going to use a card format of decimal, meaning that the card ID coming over from the Secure system is going to be in decimal format, and then it's going to be, when that person is identified, it's going to be converted to the Wiegand format and sent to the Secure panel. We're going to not put any filters in at this time, and it's going to synchronize all the records on startup, plus it will do a full synchronization check at 3 a.m. and we can change this if needed. Since we're not going to make any changes here, we're going to click close, and then we need to click on the IA import server settings. Enter them here, so we're going to do the loopback address and our security ID, which is all ones. Username is administrator, and our password is Iris 3000. Now, just to show you, is the security ID, or where this information comes from, is in the Iris Manager under Creation. So I'm going to reopen my Iris Manager real quick and show you under Creation for Iris Enroll. We have the entry for IA import, which is at the loopback address, meaning it's on the same computer here, and we put in the security ID of all ones. And that's what information we just copied into here. I click on Update Settings, click OK, and it says I need to restart the IA import service for this to take effect. Click OK, and this will stop and also restart the IA import service. So we stop the service and I click Start, and now it's showing the connection is taking place and the user information is now downloading from the Secure server into the Iris Access EAC server. And we should be able to go now to our Iris Manager, which now we see that we have the information on the server. So I'm going to just close this, I'm going to minimize this, and compare our entries. Now I'm going to demonstrate how we can add people to the system. So I'm going to enroll myself into the Secure. Click New, and I'll enter in my first name, last name, and we'll give myself a credential. So I'll give my card ID number of 7772, and we'll hit Save and Close. And if you notice, my name shows up in the Secure system, and now it also shows up in the Iris Access system. I'm going to enroll myself, and I need to keep note of my user ID 5069, and I'm going to switch over now to the enrollment computer to perform the Iris enrollment. Now I'm on the enrollment workstation, and we're going to open our Iris Enroll. And we'll connect to our enrollment camera. Alright, so now I'm going to perform an iris enrollment, and I'll select enroll, and now it prompts me to look into the mirror.
We've finished taking pictures of your eyes.
And here it's pulled up my iris images, and I have a pretty decent quality, so I'll just go on to verification test, present my eyes again, and I click OK. So now this is where I'll click in fill in user information. Since I already have an entry in the database, I want to add the iris to it. So my number is 5069. Get user information. So this is all my current information in the system. And I'll click next and finish. And it's that simple. Now, if we go back to, actually we could open up the Iris Manager on this computer. And you can see here it shows my name, and now it has a silhouette, a full silhouette of myself, which means that I have been enrolled into the Iris system, and I have credentials. I can double click on this and see my details in the Iris Access system, and here it shows that both eyes are enrolled both eyes. And click cancel. And now I can go over to the door camera, and what we'll do is we'll also open up the iris monitor here so we can show the transaction. And it shows that the front door or the entry door is online with the details. And up in this portion we'll see is the transaction. So now when I present my eyes to the door entry camera,
Thank you. You have been identified.
I've been identified, and it will show that I have been accepted into the iris system and records my transaction data. At the same time, the Wiegand output was sent to the Secure system, and the Secure system should now also show that transaction. Alright, now back on the Secure server, we're going to show how we can change the credential for a user. So I'll go into my entry here, and I need to go in here and add another card, and say in this case 8885, and we're going to actually disable, say I lost my previous card, and we create the new one. I hit save and close, and it should notice instantaneously it will update the card ID for my record. So now it provides me the new credential. Okay, and also now I want to demonstrate that if you delete a user from Secure, I'll select delete and click yes, then that user will be deleted from the EAC database as well, along with their iris template. That now completes the Iris Access and Secure integration. Existing users in the Secure database can now have their irises enrolled for use with the Iris cameras by simply enrolling in Iris Enroll with reference to the user ID which is in the Secure system. When the users identify at the Iris camera, their card credentials will be output from the iCam to the access control panel via the iCam's Wiegand output. The Wiegand output of the iCam will accurately emulate the output of a card read.